Oklahoma is my home. This is where I was born and raised. It was here where I was given a chance at life, being conceived after my mother was violated at the age of 16. This is where I received my education and learned with hard work, discipline, and courage anything was possible. But things have changed. This is not the Oklahoma I remember. Over the last several years, I've seen fear, chaos, and division tear this nation apart through the efforts of communists and the apathy of Republicans in name only, who are either incapable or unwilling to do whatever it takes to protect our God-given rights. Election fraud, open borders, riots, unvetted Afghan refugees, and 300,000 plus acres of land sold to Chinese nationals has made Oklahoma the hub for human trafficking, the indoctrination of our children in critical race theory, sexual immorality, and abortion on demand. And finally, the unconstitutional and illegal vaccine mandate, leaving hundreds of thousands of our legal and law-abiding citizens jobless. Enough is enough, and the political theater must stop. We must have a governor who's willing to lead legislators and Oklahomans to fight back against this tyranny and aggressively address these issues head on. As the next governor of the state of Oklahoma, I will, in the first 100 days, initiate a forensic audit with canvases to ensure election integrity, secure Oklahoma's borders, stop all state funding to school districts who train or teach CRT to faculty, staff, or students, and end all abortions. Oklahoma, let's put our faith back in God, believe that nothing is impossible, and make Oklahoma free again. Welcome, everyone. On behalf of my wife, Dr. Michelle, and I, welcome to another virtual town hall. I'm your host, Dr. Mark Sherwood, as you know, and we are gaining a lot of momentum. We have an exciting, amazing town hall planned tonight with two great guests, and we have had a lot of historical things happen in the past that I'll catch you up on briefly. We have a lot of historical things coming in the future that I'll catch you up on briefly in just a moment. Tonight, as we go through here, make sure you share the feed in all of your circles because people need information. You cannot make good decisions unless you have good information. And good information must be seasoned with wisdom. So run it through the proper filters, the proper channels, and make sure that your good information is used properly because correct use of information, again, is wisdom. Incorrect use of information is called foolishness. So we'll make sure we use our information right. And tonight's going to be chock full of information. Now, with that said, I'll introduce our next guest tonight. I met our next guest, John, probably about going on about 10 months ago or so. And he is a man of great knowledge. He's been involved in Oklahoma politics for a number of years in many, many positions. He's of Oklahomans United for Life, and I am honored to call him a friend.
Thousands of preborn human beings to continue to be killed in Oklahoma. And I was really discouraged by the argument that I heard our governor make on national television. He told everybody when asked why we were going to restrict abortion at all, that the answer was, because I represent all 4 million Oklahomans and they want me to protect life. And that sounds great to most people who don't think about it much, but if you'll think about that for a second, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you trying to regulate abortion? Well, because that's what they want me to do? That was his argument. He had an opportunity to tell tens of millions of people across the country that abortion is murder, that it takes the life of an innocent human being, and that God hates the hands that shed innocent blood. Therefore, we're going to abolish all abortion 100% completely. And all he could come up with is the people are sort of pro-life and this is what they want me to do. So it's a difference between understanding absolute moral standards on the one hand versus just pragmatism in politics. Where can I count the biggest number of votes and support? Count those numbers, nickels and noses. So that was very disappointing. So seeing that sign Sunday night, I thought, this is a guy who understands that abortion is murder, and he would know how to close the loopholes, and he would know how to respond to what we just saw leak out a couple of weeks ago about Roe v. Wade.
No, that's great, and you're right. When asked that question on national TV, if that were me, I would have looked him in the eye and taken it as an opportunity that God gave me to communicate truth and tell them plainly that abortion is murder, that every single life, preborn, unborn, even the lives conceived in God before being conceived on earth are important, and they're especially in the eyes of God because He's got a plan for everyone. And just like me, conceived out of a situation where my mom, God rest her soul, at 16 years old, was violated by a 19-year-old man and gave birth to me and gave me up for adoption. I am not a mistake. No life's a mistake. And I wouldn't have put that back on any citizens. It would have been right back squarely to give God glory. So you're right about that, John Mishner. I would have never backed down from that one because that is a true statement right there.
Well, having mentioned that, let me ask you further then. Most of the laws that get passed these days, and in fact, we had one pass out of the House and Senate and get sent up to the governor just last week, they have these built in exceptions, whether that be rape or incest, or maybe if the mother's the one that's doing the abortion versus a doctor. There's just many, many exceptions. What are your thoughts on these exceptions, and how would you handle that or provide leadership if you were the governor?
Well, that's a great question. The idea of exceptions are contrary to the Word of God. Further, people need to know this, they're contrary to the Oklahoma GOP platform stance. So if your legislature's out there and is talking about this is okay, you need to hold them on the carpet. You can get that GOP stance at our website, Sherwood2022.com. Read it. But this is what we need to do. We need to stand firm on the platform that abortion is murder, that it should be treated as such, equivalent of state laws regarding punishment, with no exceptions. So I would advocate everybody standing up, all the people putting a squeeze on the legislatures to present a bill that makes abortion a felony, which I will sign and put into effect as law immediately, regardless of Roe v. Wade, regardless of any court opinion, because right is right, wrong is wrong, and it will always be such. And God will help us, and He will protect us, and He will defend us through this process, and His hand of blessing will return upon this land.
Yes, yes. I think we're at a really important crossroads here. This is a very, very critical moment in our nation as a union. It's we're kind of standing on the edge where something really good could come out of this election season with what we're about to deal with here in Oklahoma. Something really positive could come out of Roe v. Wade being overturned, but it could also be really bad. I mean, we're at the crossroads. If you reflect back and think about what happened in 1973, the Supreme Court, when they came out with Roe v. Wade, that was a horrible decision, made it up out of thin air, total phony baloney. And because the church and the people of God failed to rise up and say no and nullify that thing in the states immediately as they should have done, it got entrenched. And so now we've had 49 years of Holocaust. I do believe we're at the same sort of crossroads right now. And it's because of what the Supreme Court said in the leaked draft. Let's just assume for the sake of argument that they're going to make that official and that what we read is the gist of what we're going to get. So what they did say is absolutely correct. It's positive. It's good. States have the purview to decide what's criminal in their states. They overturned Roe v. Wade. This is as close as we're going to get to political repentance from the court. And I thank God for that. But what they did not say is very dangerous, because they could have gone further, and they should have, both morally and constitutionally gone further. And they should have said that this Mississippi heartbeat law is unconstitutional per the 14th Amendment, because the 14th Amendment requires states to provide equal protection of their laws to every citizen in the state, to every human being equally in the state. And the states aren't currently doing that with abortion laws. But what's scary is that they're not currently doing that with their pro-life laws either. And so by not saying that states, you must protect all of your human beings equally, that is natural law from God, and that is our federal constitution, and that is your state constitution. And we can't tell you exactly how to do it because it's your state and it's your state's sovereignty and right to do that. But you better protect every human being in your state. I mean, if you think about rape, for example, rape is criminal for anyone to do, no matter the age of the victim. You don't check the victim to make sure they're 13 or 16 or 18 or have a heartbeat. It's criminal for everybody all the time to commit rape. Well, abortion laws, if they're going to be morally consistent and constitutional, have to be the same way. They have to apply to everybody all the time. So it really worries me that the court did not make that statement, because now even pro-life states like Oklahoma are going to have the opportunity to pass some laws save some lives, but leave gaping loopholes. If all the pro-life laws go into effect that would have been recently passed in Oklahoma, it might save a couple thousand lives, but we're still going to see 2, 3, 4,000 lives lost because we have so many exceptions built in. Now, I ran into a statistic not long ago from Guttmacher, which tracks all this for Planned Parenthood, and as of 2020, over 50% of all abortions were already being chemically administered. So what this means is that if you don't criminalize the mother and other people who are involved in murder by abortion, you won't be able to stop it. The industry is already set up to go full-scale mail-order abortion, and that's where this is going to go. So as I say, this is the critical point where we have got to close down all the loopholes while we have momentum, while we know the courts aren't going to get involved, and this is the time. This is where we need principle and leadership from the top down. Because down here at the Capitol that I can see right down the road there's 148, 49 legislators, and they're just like a herd of cats. You can't get them all together going in the same direction to abolish abortion. They need a strong governor to come in and say, this is what I want on my desk, this is what we're going to enforce, and these are the principled reasons why. And that's why I'm so excited about you stepping in and running the same way that Dan Fisher did in 2018. Someone who knows God's truth, someone who knows the Constitution and what his duty would be if he was in that office. So I can't thank you enough for stepping up and saying we need a different kind of leadership in this state. I know you'll bring that same kind of energy, enthusiasm, and character to all the issues that you care about. And I've looked at your platform, and it's really, really exciting. But this is a battle of worldviews, and I can tell that you view the world through God's lens, and that's so great.
I appreciate that, John. And this is very important for our listeners to understand. The idea of incrementalism doesn't work. It doesn't work in slavery. It doesn't work in abortion. What's right is right and wrong is wrong, and abortion is murder. When I get in office, we will push hard, folks, for the legislatures to put that bill on my desk, completely abolishing abortion in this state, making it a felony, and I'll sign it again, put it into law. Now, if they don't, we will call a special session until they do. And it's important, John, you mentioned something very key, and I want people to really understand what you said and not miss it. This crux of where we are right now, when this controversial situation manifests itself, my biggest concern is that it will not decrease abortions, but it will increase abortions because of the backlash, because of what they didn't do. And I echo those comments, and I'm very concerned about that because of the clear understating, let's call it what it is, a punting of the idea of the 14th Amendment. You know, they didn't address that. And when they don't address it, it's implicit that they meant that way. So, you know, yeah, they're pushing it back to the states, but they're also going to allow the states like California, for example, to do whatever they want. And I even read an article recently about Starbucks as incentives for their health benefits to actually pay. So it's getting messed up right now. And we have a time right now, folks, where we've got to step in with a fearless, and I mean fearless attitude without compromise. Because when we do, we will win. And if we don't, we've already lost. And John, I'd like your thoughts on the idea of how it, you know, it's set up to get even worse in some states.
Right. I mean, we're all familiar with the phrase, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That is the reality. There's always going to be the dark district, the red light district, the other side of the tracks. There's always that place where people are ultimately going to go to sin. And to some extent, you can't prevent that from happening as long as people can travel and as long as there is sin in the human heart, which there always is. But what you have is political leaders are God's arms and legs. They're his. They establish justice in their jurisdiction. You know, so if you're a county sheriff, you're in charge of making sure that innocent lives and property are defended in that county. If you're the governor of a state, you're in charge of administering the law, executing the laws, and making sure all the lives and property in your state are protected. And so while they may go and do something in Vegas and there become these meccas where people travel and go to do their heinous crimes, we can cleanse and wash the innocent blood from the state of Oklahoma. And what that does is it gives us a clean conscience, and it allows God to rain blessings down on the land where we live and raise our children. And then we can also become a light, a city on a hill that chases that darkness back, and then others can join with our light. It can become brighter. They can follow our example. And, just like these days, pornography is prevalent. It's on people's phones, it's in their houses, it's on their computers, it's everywhere. But there was a time when you had to actually walk into the corner store and risk embarrassment and being seen by someone who knows you and loves you and ask for something that's in a paper bag behind the counter. Well, sin belongs in the dark, in the paper bag, behind the counter. It needs to be against the law. It needs to be frowned upon. It needs to be shunned. And we need to move back in that direction. Let's make it hard for people to sin. Let's once again make it something that they have to go somewhere else to do and hide it. And it can be between them and God. And let them wrestle with their conscience. But let's help them. Let's create the context and the opportunity for them to be able to wrestle with their conscience and feel conviction and maybe then repent. So yeah, there are going to be meccas. There's going to be places where people go to get abortion. But that's better than doing it right here in our own backyard under the cover of our laws in our jurisdiction where we have a say-so. We need to say so, and we need to say no right here. And that's the right thing to do regardless of where people might run to Nevada or New York. We got to clean up the trash in our own backyard, and we have the ability to do that.
Yeah, it is, and I echo your comments, John. It is the right thing to do, and we will do that. We have committed to that, and not because I'm pandering to votes. I want everyone to know that. It's because it's the right thing to do. And that's why I'm running for office to be your next governor, because it's the right thing to do. It needs to be done. It's not that I need the job. My wife and I are in good shape. We're good. But it has to be done. We have to have someone stand in the gap right now, and it's just not happening. I've looked at these various laws that have been signed. I guess there's probably well over 100, if not 200 now, that regulate. I think you just need one, if I don't mind myself saying so. It's just one that you need, and that's enough. When you look at this, John, as what we've talked about, we've talked offline before. When we get the right governor in that is going to support the county sheriffs and even educate them, the governor and the sheriffs are going to be the most important parties in this situation. What do you see happening in Oklahoma, forecasting, and what do you see that doing to the people of the state?
Well, like I said, we're at a serious crossroads here, and probably the most important thing anybody can do if you care about life, liberty, and property, if you care about your ability to carry a gun to defend yourself in this crazy world, if you care about keeping innocent preborn human beings from being slaughtered, the most important thing you can do right here is vote on June 28th for Mark Sherwood for governor, because that is the primary election in Oklahoma, and that's where you will be deciding between Kevin Stitt and Mark Sherwood. That's where it'll be decided on June 28th. And it's a massive crossroads. So this comes down to a battle of worldviews. Do you want to go about things in a principled way, building on God's eternal, moral, absolute principles? Or do you want to continue sort of going man's way with whatever the most people want me to do, wherever I can count the most numbers, nickels, and noses? We don't need to be top 10 at anything. We need to be the most righteous, best, godly at everything. And that's different. That's a very different worldview. And you have a clear choice here on June 28th. So asking me to look forward and see what's going to happen, well, if we miss putting you in there as our gubernatorial nominee in November, well, then we're going to get the status quo. We're going to continue to go along with what everybody sort of wants, with what fits in a little bit with pop culture and a little bit with nominal Christianity and a little bit with what this guy wants and this guy wants, so that we can be top 10 or top 7 or top whatever in NBA basketball and tourism or whatever, while these kids continue to die because you compromised your principles and you said we're not going after everyone involved and we're going to let you do it at home and we're going to allow this, that, and the other. We have got to put our foot down, and this is our opportunity to do that. Now it could go another way. We could put Mark Sherwood in there, and now what's going to happen? Not only are we going to close the loopholes, save innocent lives in Oklahoma going forward by the thousands year after year, but that same sort of principled leadership is going to extend into other important areas. So when the feds come for our guns and come for our property and come for our businesses, you will have proactively trained our county sheriffs to stand in the gap with his deputies, with state law enforcement, to stand against federal overreach and the beast and protect truly our sovereignty through action. Not through saying I believe in state sovereignty, but through actually doing state sovereignty. This is the choice we have before us today. I feel like we're standing next to Joshua and we're trying to decide, are we going to go into the promised land, receive God's blessings right now, or are we going to be turned back into the desert for more years of wandering and people dying? I feel like that's where we are right now.
That's interesting you say that, because I've had the thought many times, and I've shared it a few times, John, and people know this. I feel like, like Moses, that our people are in bondage. They don't, some of them don't know it, but we're going to lead them out anyway. And we're going to keep pressing and pressing and pressing until we get them to the promised land, because it's so much better. What we're doing right now is symbolic of bleeding. I don't want to put a Band-Aid on a wound. I want to seal of the wound. And that's two different things. You can put a Band-Aid on it, it can still leak, or you can get that thing healed. And I'm all about healing. I'm not about managing. I know for a fact that when we step up and all of us do the right thing, will it be tough times and attacks come? Yes. But will we be protected? Yes. And will we see God's hand come back upon this land, this great state of Oklahoma? Yes, we will. And it will be unexplainable to the common man. It'll be unexplainable to the world, but it will draw all attention to this state. And when that happens, we all are going to sit back and we're not going to take credit for it. We're going to give God the glory for it. And so that's really important to me in this, and I know it's important to you as well. And John, as we there's a couple of questions here I just want to kind of get to real quick. Do you believe that the states can actually stand up, and I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you, the states can actually stand up, be the 10th Amendment against the federal government?
Well, yeah, of course they can, but it requires leadership. The people at a grassroots level are sheep, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. God made us to look to leaders. We need someone to round us up, point us in the same direction so that we can realize the best versions of ourselves. Without positive leadership, we all go in the wrong direction and we end up realizing the worst versions of ourselves. But it takes a shepherd to come along and say, here's what we're going to do. So the grassroots folks can sit around and debate over the poker table and at the coffee table and at the local bar whether or not this is going to work, and say, yeah, it's going to work, no, it's not going to work. But until somebody, the governor and the county sheriffs, stand up and say, here's what we're actually going to do to stop the federal overreach, it's all theoretical. So can it happen? Yes, but it absolutely won't happen without leadership from the top. And that's why having the right governor with the right principles is so important. Doing the right thing.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, John.
Doing the right thing is always the right thing. You have to act on principle, and then you let the chips fall where they may. But when you're doing the right thing, it's not a gamble, because you're always doing the right thing.
Well, John, I appreciate that very much. And before we say goodbye to the folks, 30 seconds tonight, John, and how can they, well, first of all, how can they get a hold of you? And then what concluding remarks do you have?
So you can get a hold of me at oklahomansunitedforlife.org. That's oklahomansunitedforlife.org. We specialize in training you at the grassroots level to get out and defend your preborn neighbors through apologetics, through good questions, through good dialogue, and sharing evangelistically. We also train you how to get involved politically, so we can help you think about what campaign you need to launch in your neck of the woods to make a difference. We'll come to your church, your home school, your private school, your Sunday school class, and we'll dive into these issues and answer all of your questions, whether they have to do with politics or biology or theology. We come at it from every angle and can teach you. And so the last thing I guess I would say, and just close with this, is stop sitting on the premises and start standing on the promises. Get up. Get out of your house, get out of your church building, and start looking for ways that you can get involved. If you need help with figuring out how to get involved based on what your skills and interests are, call me, email me. We will get you involved in the fight to save your preborn neighbors. However that is going to look for you, we'll help you do that. But everyone has a responsibility to go vote on June 28th. For Mark Sherwood and the other candidates running for the Oklahoma legislature down here, so that we can get the right shepherds who will lead the flock to finally stop the murder and cleanse Oklahoma from all the bloodshed, so that we can be blessed by God immeasurably compared to the other states. That's what we need to do.
Wow. John, that was great. And I really appreciate coming on tonight. And folks, go check out oklahomansunitedforlife.org. Make sure you go there. We'll put that in the feed as well. Go ahead and through the feed, thank John for all of his time and wisdom and experience that he poured into all of us tonight. I know in my life, and I'm grateful. And with that said, folks, I want you to know straight up, as we close out this town hall tomorrow night, make sure that you download our app, find out where we are. Those of you in northwestern Oklahoma, tomorrow night I'll be in Harper County at the Second Amendment meeting up there, and then Wednesday, Norman, Thursday, Owasso, and look for something near you. Get involved. It is not a spectator sport. You have to get involved. And folks, let me just be real clear with you right now. I can talk a good game, but I will back it up. I will put my actions with words. Frankly, I'm tired of the political babble. I'm tired of the biblical babble. I'm tired of the nonsense that we have right now at our capital and other capitals around these United States. The best thing we need to do right now is put our actions into sermons and our sermons into actions. And I will let my words talk, but more importantly, my actions will speak louder. So with that said, from all of our team, I want to thank you so much for tuning in tonight. May God bless you, your family, and may God bless these United States of America. Good.
And so about Dr. Sherwood stepping up to the plate.
This is a man after God's own heart who will not compromise with the devil.
He's bold, he's courageous.
I'm Nick Vujicic.
Warren Hamilton.
I'm Jake Merrick.
And I endorse
Enthusiastically
Dr. Mark Sherwood
as governor of Oklahoma.